Hello, my name's Tim Shelbourne and I'm just going to quickly run through the procedure for creating the HDR interior shot as featured in the tutorial in this month's magazine. So we'll simply begin by, within Photoshop itself, going to File and Browse so we can get into the bridge, and within the bridge all we need to do is simply hold down the Control key and highlight the three bracketed exposures that we want to merge to the completed HDR image. Once we've done that, simply go to Tools, Photoshop and Merge to HDR. Now Photoshop will combine these three images, which sometimes takes a few minutes. You'll see as it's running through this process, it'll then go into align each of the separate layers, which is very important with bracketed shots, just in case there's any degree of movement in between each exposure. The align with selected layers can take a while, but finally we will enter the Merge to HDR dialog itself with our three bracketed exposures down this side as thumbnails. You can always click these previews on and off to see what effect it has on the image itself. So for bit depth we want to choose 32 bits per channel, and this slider beneath the histogram we can use to check the tonal range within the image. Now it's important to note that this is actually just a preview function. This really doesn't have any effect on the image itself. It's simply so we can check the range of tones within the combined image, and you can see here we've got wonderful detail in the shadow areas, and we can go right through to the highlights, and we've actually got lots of information there as well. So set that somewhere that seems appropriate and then simply click OK to generate the merged file. So now Photoshop presents us with the merged file itself, and the next thing we need to do, because obviously this isn't how we want the final image, we need to do quite a bit of tone mapping to adjust the tones within the image the way we want them. We'll start that by going to Image Mode, and you can choose either 16 or 8 bits here for the conversion process. I generally go for 16 bits, but you may well choose to go for 8. It's really just a matter of personal taste with that. In 8 bits there are more functions available for post-processing in Photoshop than there are in 16, but 16 can actually maintain quite a few more tones, so we'll choose that one now. Now you'll see we arrive at the HDR conversion dialog, and by default this is set to exposure and gamma. Now the exposure and gamma conversion is quite hit and miss, and it doesn't offer us the degree of control that we need here, and the same goes for highlight, compression and equalize histogram. I would always recommend using the local adaptation method, so we'll choose that from the method list there. Now don't be scared off by this. The immediate image result that we get from this is generally absolutely terrible, and it looks pretty awful as this does, but we can solve that. And to do that you need to click these two down pointing arrows for the toning curve and histogram, so we can display that, because this is where most of our work is going to take place. Just reduce the radius down to a fairly low level for the time being, and we'll introduce a little more contrast with the threshold slider. We'll return to those in a few minutes. Now, the first thing we need to do is set out black and white points, and this is literally just like the levels command where we shift the black and white endpoints. We'll start with the black there and probably just tweak the white point up a little there. Okay, so now we need to work guided by the histogram, and histograms can take quite a bit of understanding, but The purpose here is to show you exactly how to do that. So in effect, each section of the histogram represents a different area or different tones in the image itself, and we can see that by simply, when you move outside the conversion dialog, we can click and hold with the eyedropper we're supplied with,